Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our fantastic Drawdown Georgia Climate Digest interview series. I'm so happy today to be joined by our fantastic guest, Jennifer Kline from Georgia Department of Natural Resources. Jennifer, it's good to see you. Thank you for being a part of our little project here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Um, Great. So let's jump right in. We got a lot of questions, and I want to get to all of them. I'm really interested in speaking with you today about what you have going on. So please formally introduce yourself to our audience and tell us about what brought you to a career focused on coastal climate and environmental issues.
Yeah, so I'm Jennifer Kline. I'm the Coastal Hazards Specialist with Georgia DNR's Coastal Resources Division Coastal Management Program. We focus on the 11 coastal counties as it relates to coastal hazards. My background is in environmental geography and geology, and I've been with the department now for 24 and a half years, and
Wow.
probably about 15 years ago, we really started to look at a lot of our priorities and planning, and there was just nobody really working on coastal hazards in general. And it was a prime opportunity for us to tackle that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I would love to talk more about kind of how you got there. I think we oftentimes have a lot of folks that are joining, that are trying to, we have some young people joining that are trying to kind of figure out, and that's always where my brain goes. Because for me, my career was not linear. And there's so many different ways where you can enjoy the environmental movement, right? And the climate movement. So I don't know if there's any more that you want to say or could say about what interested you, while you were in school, how you got to like, that's where you wanted to be. I was looking at your bio and that's what you majored in, because I'm always interested in hearing career paths, because there's, again, so many different ways for you to join your work.
Yeah, I mean, we actually in college learned a lot about weather and climate and coastal hazards, very interesting topics. When I started with the department, I was working in environmental protection, and I would go to industry and look at them for compliance with their permits. And that always meant that I was the bad guy coming. And so had the opportunity to jump over to our sister division with Coastal Resources Division and provide guidance and assistance to our local governments, our local communities, and also be the liaison between the federal and other state agencies on anything coastal hazards related. And we also have a grant program where we pass through about $500,000 a year to communities. So people really like seeing me come now as opposed to being before. So that was really intriguing to me.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of Georgia, what are the biggest challenges being faced by Georgia's coastal communities around climate change? And with that, what work is being done to build resiliency in local ecosystems and communities to combat some of those challenges?
Yeah. So right now, I see one of the biggest challenges is that people know about flooding, but here in coastal Georgia, we have multiple types of flooding. So we have the storm event, we have storm surge from hurricanes. We also have high tide flooding, and that is something that Atlanta wouldn't have to deal with. But here, we'll have high tide floodings many days out of the year. And sometimes that can combine with rain events, and that just exacerbates the flooding here. And we don't, until recently, we haven't had a lot of efforts to update infrastructure to be able to adapt to that change on our coast. And so that is something that I know that our local governments in the coast are really working on how to adapt and mitigate for those changes, especially in updating infrastructure when needed. And there's a lot of research going into that. And then everybody wants to live here. So
Right.
we have that along with the hazards that are coming in.
Sure. You talk about flooding, and I will be remiss if I didn't mention we just passed the 20-year anniversary of Katrina, and you mentioned storm surge, which was the actual major issue. I think a lot of folks, I'm originally from up north and from New Jersey, and I think that a lot of folks that aren't in the area, aren't on the coast, didn't understand that it wasn't even the hurricane that was the major issue. There was damage, of course, but Louisiana, the coast, they're used to hurricanes. It was the storm surge. So I'm glad you mentioned storm surge because I feel like it's so timely with Katrina's anniversary just passing and kind of how coastal, certainly there are different challenges for Louisiana than Georgia, but at the same time, it's something to think about.
Yeah, we actually, speaking of New Jersey, after Superstorm Sandy and the experiences that New York and New Jersey went through, we took on a huge 10-year project to have disaster recovery and redevelopment plans created for all 11 coastal counties. That includes the first 6 counties that face the ocean, and we went inland one tier for them to really think about not necessarily response, like when the sirens are off and the power's back on, you still
Right.
have to recover. And what do you want your community to look like? We were the first state in the nation to have a completely resilient coast based on FEMA's National Disaster Recovery Framework. And then after Hurricane Michael, when Southwest Georgia, not even coastal communities, were slammed, GMO was able to use the template that we had already created to do those same plans in Southwest Georgia. So it's extremely important.
Yeah. Okay, so why wetland protection specifically? I'm watching Katrina documentaries, and they talked about wetlands and how wetlands are the nature's way of blocking us from hurricanes. Wetlands are going away at a rapid rate, especially in the Southeast. I'm interested in knowing from you, why is wetland protection, in your opinion, such an important climate and environmental issue and an environmental justice issue too, in Georgia as well as other places?
Yeah, I would say wetlands, freshwater throughout the whole state of Georgia, and saltwater on the coast are extremely important for us, for the state, mainly because wetlands are our storage for a lot of water that is natural storage.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever driven by and seen where there's been a slate of timber cut just after a rain event, and it puddles right there. And that's because the timber is not there to absorb that water. Wetlands have that same function. They are able to absorb it and hold it. Wetlands filter our water. Wetlands have vast amounts of habitat structure. And here on the coast, our saltwater wetlands, if they are protected, then that also allows for our marshes to migrate where there's not a barrier there. As sea levels rise, we are seeing those marshes move inland. And so having that ability to migrate without any barriers in the way is also extremely important. Our marsh stabilizes the shoreline and prevents erosion. It's huge. Our marshes and our beaches are our first line of defense from storms. They absorb such a significant amount of energy, and it helps to protect the communities that are built behind them.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. That's so important. I don't think it's something, like you said, if you've ever driven by a marsh or a wetland, and I think so many of us are familiar with where they are, but don't really have a full understanding. Even someone who's been in the movement as long as I have, almost 20 years, and as long as you said you've been at the agency 24 years, not even understanding the natural resource side of why it's so important for us to protect wetlands, even with us knowing where they are and seeing them all the time. So this year, you and your team at Department of Natural Resources are hosting the Georgia Resiliency Conference. Please tell us all about this event and how it has evolved over the years. I'm mildly familiar with it, but I really want to hear more.
Yeah, so it hasn't evolved much because in 2016, when we held the inaugural Georgia conference, we had such a great response to it. And we kind of felt like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And so we kind of stuck with the pattern that we have been going with. 2016 was the first, 2021 was the second, and this is the third. It's going to be the same layout. My goal for this conference has always been to highlight the work that is being done in our state to address coastal hazards and the resiliency to these coastal hazards. A lot of people don't know about it, and we don't do enough to promote the great work that's being done in our state. And this is an opportunity to say, hey, this is what we're doing. Do you want to partner with us on it? Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe that the city of Brunswick did this project. We can do the same thing in our area. And this is an opportunity to not be redundant, to learn from each other, to network, and to find out all of the great things that are happening here. This year, we have 108 Georgia projects that will be highlighted at the conference, and 11 out-of-state projects that we felt like we could really learn from them as a state that we could bring back here. And so that's really exciting to me to be able to have that and highlight that.
We've mentioned this on this show many times, and so it bears repeating at this point. I think it's so easy for us in this work and in many other lines of work right now to look at all the bad things happening and the ways in which some things feel like they're being rolled back and progress is being halted, or moving 2 steps forward to move 3 steps back. And so I am always excited to bring folks on the show that are like, we're full steam ahead. We have projects, we have this, we have that. We're bringing folks together. They're still working, because it's very easy to get to, one, to disassociate, but two, to also get very bogged down with all the stuff and the muck that we see and the mire that we experience, and not really look up and see all the great work that is still happening, that is still moving ahead full steam. And I think that the conference and also the projects that you mentioned are a great testament of how we can keep moving forward, and regardless of the political climate, regardless of what's going on around us, both statewide and federally. So that's really
exactly cool. Yeah.
The conference sounds fantastic. Who should attend? What is the audience, and what can attendees expect to gain from the event?
Yeah, so anyone who is interested in what is going on in your state and how we're addressing some of the resiliency efforts, we have people register who are just retired and were interested. We've had church organizations register, local governments, non-government organizations, government organizations, state, federal agencies, researchers, a lot of researchers. And so really and truly, if you're interested in the topic, there's something for everyone. And like I said, you can expect it's very heavy on project presentations. We'll have a couple of keynote speakers. Dr. Wayne Clough, the former president of Georgia Tech, and the Secretary of the Smithsonian will be one of our keynote speakers. And then also Monica Thornton with the Nature Conservancy will be another one of our keynote speakers. And so we're really excited to hear from them as well. I think you can also expect a lot of networking and just a great opportunity to be with each other.
Fantastic. I love that. And I also love hearing that it's not just for nonprofit folks, but anyone who's interested in the topic can feel welcome and also feel like they've gained something from it. Thank you so much for talking about the conference. I hope that folks will spend some time and think about attending. Tell us again when the conference is.
It is October 20th and 21st. It kicks off on the 20th at 7:30 in the morning. And it is going to be held at the Jekyll Island Convention Center. So not too shabby of a place to visit. And we're just super excited. There's more information on our conference website. It's georgiaclimateconference.org.
Awesome. Fantastic. I've never had the pleasure of attending, but I hope to. It's always something going on, and I hope again. But I hope to soon enough. Thank you so much for coming to talk about it. Thank you for welcoming folks, regardless of your vocation or occupation, to the event. Congratulations to you all for another event, being able to hold another event. I'm an event planner as well, and I know it's not too shabby of a task either. So especially in these times. So congratulations to you all for being able to do it once more. This is my favorite question. It's our last question, but I'm glad we end with this one because it's on an up note. What is giving you hope around climate and environment in Georgia?
Well, we kind of alluded to it, but seeing the commitment from NGOs, from state government, from local communities, from academia, from this wide range of citizens continuing to do the work voluntarily. There's no rules, and they're still doing it from a bottom up approach. And I think that gives me hope that we're still going to continue to see this going on, even more so in the future.
Awesome. I completely agree with you. I think folks are not going to stop. They're going to do the best they can to continue to work forward as they see the positive changes and the positive outcomes in their communities. And so I don't disagree with you at all. And I think you're absolutely right. Thank you again, Jennifer, for being with me today. Thank you for talking about the Georgia Resiliency Conference. We will post information about the conference with this interview, and I hope that you all will join Jennifer and her team down at Georgia DNR and go to Jekyll Island and have some fun for me. Thank you all so much for being with us once again today. Thank you again, Jennifer. Have a great day, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.